There's technologies that we can look toward to kind of identify intelligent life.
Spent all this money, billions and billions of dollars to make these cool telescopes. That is a very, I don't know, benign thing compared to creating an atmosphere or changing gravitational fields. Do something as great as conquering another planet, that they would still bring their animalistic characteristics to that planet.
Mankind was born on Earth. It wasn't meant to die here. Joseph Cooper from Interstellar. It's kind of a fun quote. We're kind of talking about the idea of traveling in space, finding intelligent life, living on another planet such as Mars, Alpha Centauri, what's it called, Kepler, A, B, something. The idea is that, is there intelligent life out there? Are we able to get off Earth if need be, or if we just want to explore, go to other planets? We have concepts of the Fermi Paradox, which basically describes why we haven't seen intelligent life yet. And many different theories that we can kind of touch on. There's Black Forest theory, which is that if you make noise in the universe, then there's certain types of aliens that are very greedy, hungry for resources that will target you. It's kind of like a fun theory. There's also like zoo theories, crazy stuff. And also the technology is required to travel certain distances to get to certain places, developing atmospheres on different planets. We could talk about the Kardashev Scale, the Drake equation. We're going to get into all of this. So yeah, I'm excited.
Welcome back to the Deep Plea. My name is Karthik. The guy on the other side of the mic is Sven.
Hello,
In
hello.
this podcast, we aim to just learn more about the world around us through deep conversations. We're playing in Sven's sandbox today, so I'm excited.
Yep.
So Sven,
Yeah.
talk about one of these kind of paradoxes or theories about the universe. Like, what does it actually entail? Especially since, for the average viewer, maybe they don't know a lot about it. So let's try and simplify it and give it in a way that general person would understand.
Okay. So I guess I'll start with the Kardashev scale. This is going to kind of be like a basis of how we can identify civilization's means of technology. So technically, the Kardashev scale just goes from 1, 2 to 3, but it's been rewritten to even like 1,000,000. Like people have gone pretty wild with it. And so basically, the idea is that if you have a Kardashev level 2 civilization, they can harness the energy. I believe it's 2. They can harness the energy of their sun, and they can control their weather. And some technologies that we can look toward is like something called the Dyson Sphere. And it could be nanomachines, or it can be like long surfaces that go around the sun to harness the sun's energy. And it doesn't have to be their sun, it could be any sun. And in real life, we've had ideas that we think is actually happening. So there's something called Tabby's star. And it's the star that flickers a lot. And scientists don't understand why. And it's not an atmospheric issue, and it's not a wobbling issue. And by that, I mean the star is going around planets, and usually with that orbit comes wobbling. But they don't believe that this star has a counterpart. And they think that it's possible that there's a Dyson sphere. Dust cloud has been ruled out. So it's interesting to think about that. And you can also look at the Great Attractor, which is basically this big open part in space where it's all black and there's nothing kind of in the middle, which kind of goes against a lot of ideas of physics, which is usually there's orbits and things will always go around in the space in between them. But for some reason, everything's kind of pushing out. And so that could be what they would, for fun, like sci-fi, would be that there's a civilization that's taking resources from that area, creating this void. There's also Booty's void, which is the same concept. So there's technologies that we can look toward to kind of identify intelligent life. There's also, I believe, 40 billion planets in Andromeda, which is, in the Milky Way, which is believed that Andromeda actually has more planets. So we're only looking in our own galaxy at this point. So what do you think about
that? Yeah, I mean, you just kind of rambled on there, and I love it. So what you're saying is, let's say we have these aliens that take matter from a specific point, right? And like you said, with the laws of physics, maybe stuff is pushing away from that point. So what you're kind of hypothesizing is that if there's this kind of space where nothing exists and all of the matter is taken from it, that could indicate abnormal activity. Am I right about that? I'm just trying to summarize. Right. Okay, that's pretty cool. I guess because it's like from understanding what we know, right? Like maybe an alien civilization, I don't know, exists beyond a black hole. That'd be pretty cool. Or something like that. That's all these different theories that are very interesting to ponder about.
Yeah.
You said something about the Drake equation. Now that just sounds interesting to me because
Yeah.
Drake. But anyways, uh, could you talk about that? What is that about? And also,
Yeah.
the Fermi paradox too.
Okay. Yeah. So the Drake equation kind of ties into the same idea as the Fermi paradox. It's basically this long equation in physics about, I guess it's theoretical physics, basically trying to calculate the amount of possible uh, intelligent life or civilizations. I really I'm not good at math, so I can't actually break down that mathematics of it. It's pretty complex stuff. But it looks for means of communication. It looks for like technology, like signals that have came out. Like it's kind of aiming toward all the ways that we could pinpoint or identify like potentials for civilizations. I don't know too much more about it, to be honest. But it's all theoretical because obviously we're talking about unknowns. Um, and it also talks about like the amount of planets around stars, which is a big thing because if you think about it, like most like what we've come to understand now is that a lot of stars, even in our galaxy, have counterpart planets around it.
Mm.
And also the same idea is that like we are an example of intelligent life, so we could actually say that this is the first piece of evidence, and then we can go from there because we're alive and we're exploring the universe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I also read that the idea behind what Fermi thought about his paradox, I don't know if that makes sense, but anyways, what Fermi thought was that the Earth and, kind of I think galaxy has been around for 4 billion years, while the universe has been around for 13 billion years, something along that line,
Yeah,
where there's a big factor, right, which is billions of years, that separate us from possible uh, remnants of first life. So if there was
right,
some other life around the universe, then that's existed for so long, then they would have been able to at least engineer some type of rocket technology that would be sufficient enough to, be something that we could at least see as an
right.
abnormality. But that hasn't
Yeah,
happened. So
right.
Fermi said, if there are aliens, shouldn't they have given us some sign by now? Which is something interesting to think about, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think the vastness of the universe is completely like we cannot comprehend how big the universe really is. Like for example, humans have only went I think it was 1.1 light seconds away, and then the Voyager is 22 light hours away. And so if we zoom out of our if we zoom out and look at our galaxy, it's like we have this little smudge that we've kind of went out on compared to the whole galaxy. uh, and the Milky Way is 100,000 light years across, and up and down it's only 1,000. So if we did want to travel out, I mean, up and down, like obviously there's no up, down, left, right, but lengthwise versus height wise, that would be the fastest way. But even then, it's you have to think traveling the speed of light. Mass can't travel the speed of light, and it takes a certain point to where I don't know what the exact number is. I think it's like
Speed of
50% the
light.
speed of light. Yeah, like because
Oh,
mass
it's
can't
like,
travel the speed of light.
I think the speed of light is like 3.8 times 10 to the eighth meters per second or something like that. Something
Something
along
like
those
that.
lines.
Yeah,
Yeah. Or
and
3
I don't.
times 10 to the eighth
Okay,
meters per second. Yeah, believe so.
and I just don't know. I'm not sure if you know this how close like a mass object can get to that speed without getting destroyed.
I got no
But
clue.
yeah, whatever that speed is, that's what you'd have to travel at, and that's not even going to be close to the speed of light. So if you think about it, like to travel across our galaxy at the speed of light, it says it's 100,000. It would take 100,000 years. And then so if you're traveling half that, it's going to take a long time. And then you're talking about traveling in between galaxies, traveling all around, and who knows, like if the technology is possible. I just think there's so many factors that play into why we haven't gotten these messages yet. And even talking about looking at other galaxies with life, like all the time for the light to get here for us to see, it would take so long. The only thing I can think of is that if we develop technology in the future, for let's say example, like the James Webb telescope is a magnificent telescope, and it's been able to show us so much, but it can't show us anything in real time, of course, because it takes light,
Yeah, yeah.
all this time to travel. So I was thinking if we somehow were able to get a telescope of that nature to travel at a very high speed, and then over time it would be able to see faster the changes of the universe as it goes because it's traveling let's say 50% the speed of light. um, obviously then to relay the information back to Earth. I mean, it's a very complex. It would
You
be
sound
a
like you're
complex
going into the
technology.
theoreticals of theoretical physics or something like that.
Right.
But
I don't know. All in all, I just think that it would take a technology outside of our current comprehension to be able to find intelligent life. What do you think?
I'd agree, man. I got no clue. But I mean, there are experts in the field, right? And
Yeah.
something that we want to talk about with the experts in the field is what are the kind of implications and costs of possibly living outside Earth. So me and Sven both, we think Earth is pretty comfy, but what about
Yeah.
some other adventurous explorers, right? What would life be like for them outside of Earth? Let's say there was some other planet. I think Alpha Centauri is one of those planets, is the closest habitable um, kind of planet similar to Earth. And something at least I want to touch on is, there's this debate that why are we exploring space, right?
Hmm.
We spent all this money, billions and billions of dollars to make these cool telescopes, James Webb, like Sven said, but are there enough problems in this world that we should focus on it instead of trying to advance scientific discovery? Because if we were to, go to another planet or go to another galaxy, how much would that cost? And would that ultimately be beneficial for the human race, assuming that Earth was not doomed to explode or something like that? Sven, what do you think?
Right. Yeah, there's this quote. I forget who it was. It may have been Alan Watts who said, "We look out into the universe and the stars, and we have great ponder, and then we look back to ourselves without that same ponder." So it's like,
Mm,
we kind of, it's easy for us to want to explore. Uh, and I think in the current time, there's actually been a lot of defunding from NASA. Um, billions of dollars is great, but that's not nothing close to like what's going on our planet. We're using tenfold that a lot of things. But I do think that. So you talked about traveling to different planets. So like Elon Musk, for example, SpaceX, he thinks that going to Mars in his lifetime is possible. I think the first initial steps is going to be creating like domes into which you can live inside on Mars and kind of setting up, like labs. And I think mainly scientists would go there. It wouldn't really be residential, of course. I think it would be a lot of like work being done. But then you have the idea of terraforming. And this is very interesting because it takes a lot of resources, but it's also kind of goes into this topic me and Carl talked about, which was sandbox versus delicacy. So is the universe a sandbox that we can kind of manipulate and figure things out, or is it very delicate and will it cause problems and offset different issues? And I think to terraform a planet, you need to create an atmosphere. You need to use magnetics to create pulls. And then if there's gravity issue, for example, Alpha Centauri is 2 times the size of Earth. We'd have to somehow create artificial gravity and figure that out.
mm, mm-hmm,
Um, and will that like cause problems in the future? If you think about Mars being terraformed and having atmosphere, now you have the sun, shooting light toward Mars, and then Mars is keeping in a lot of that light. And so that could cause, I don't know, like a lot of brightness, and Mars could be like almost like a second sun. Like I don't know, like how that would play out. I'm just kind of theorizing. So a lot of that stuff would have to be taken into account, and I'm sure a lot of this stuff can be done with math. But yeah, I don't know if the universe is sandboxy or if it's too delicate to mess with. What do
mm-hmm.
you think?
Yeah, I think I mean, obviously something that we could bring up is that Earth, right? The
Yeah,
human intervention on Earth just as a physical mass has led to climate change and all sorts of bad stuff that
yeah,
you could argue, wouldn't this same thing be possible on Mars or a different planet? Um, so if we were to modify Mars to our relentless need for self-benefit, then would that impact whether that's our life on Mars, or if there were still humans on Earth, would that impact Earth in a negative way? I guess we can't see right now if, climate change is impacting Mars per se. But
right,
I think that is a very, I don't know, benign thing compared to creating an atmosphere or changing gravitational fields or something
right,
like that, which is very massive in, I guess, its undertaking, right? So,
yeah,
um, I would like to argue that it's delicate, from a, non-scientific background. I would like to
Hmm.
argue that, but I don't know if that's really true. Like maybe if we get out somewhere far enough, then all the external debris doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting too because you look at like pollution on Earth, and that has caused like the ozone to tear. I forget what the material was. It caused like a I think it was like the spray they used, and it like actually opened up in the ozone layer, like caused like a tear,
I
and
see.
that was like an active example. Um, yeah, I think. Sorry, my mom just came down.
You could.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows? Also, it's the same idea as like, will we be like in the body like a cancer, or will we be kind of like an active ingredient of life? So it's like if we go around and we cause these problems, is there going to be repercussions? Will we have to just move? Um, and then kind of going back into the idea of the Kardashev scale, this is going to be a little bit off topic, but it's the idea that a civilization can technically live forever and even past the heat death of the universe by developing artificial stars to use energy and kind of recycling that energy. Um, and this also goes with the idea of there is this blueprint of a telescope or some sort of like design where there's a light that's shooting at a solar panel, and then it's recycling that light, and it's like I forget how it works, but it was like it was going to be able to use like all of its energy without like minimal expenditure and be able to travel for like a super long time. um yeah,
It
what
sounds
do you think?
complicated. Uh,
Yeah,
the last thing I want to touch on is would our Earth concepts, like me and Sven were thinking about, how would we handle crime or inequality on a different planet if we assumed that there was residential features on that planet? We had just pondered that um, probably scientists would be the first set of people to explore a different planet. But what
right.
if that eventually turns into just a general population? How do you
Hmm.
handle things like crime, inequality, and general, I guess, Earth concepts, not human concepts, but Earth concepts um, that come with that on a different planet? And also, would you bring the same aspects of war and the need for conquest to other planets, right? Let's say
Yeah.
you live in a dome, right? Well, I want a bigger dome. Right? Same thing. Same thing as I want a bigger house, or
Mhm.
I want a faster rover, or something instead of a faster car, right?
Right.
So I maybe have a pessimistic belief that even if humans were to do something as great as conquering another planet, that they would still bring their animalistic characteristics to that planet, or their kind of desires, or whatever that might be. Sven, what do you think? Do you agree with me or do you disagree with me?
Yeah, I think definitely there's always going to be primal nature. I think in the beginning of this, there would be the ruling. I think would actually be kind of the scientists, the people that went started there first, and I think they would be the ones to control and kind of give out what's necessary for everyone else. I think that would kind of be the government. This is kind of just what I'm thinking. I also have this fun theory that so like on Earth, if there was no light pollution, we'd be seeing the Milky Way in the sky.
Mm,
And if we're having domes and not terraforming for an atmosphere yet on Mars, they would see the Milky Way. And I have this fun idea that it's hard to do like violent behavior, bad behavior when you look up at the night sky and it's just the Milky Way, and it's
I
not
see.
like black like here on Earth.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of keeps the like pondering and keeps the the I don't know, good vibes. I don't know how really how to
Like why
describe it,
why
but
we're here in the first place.
exactly. So it's like, are you really going to rob someone or murder someone when the Milky Way is above you? I mean, some people will, but I mean, of course, after some time, maybe people get used to it, and it's not as like
That
cool
could be a
anymore.
thing as well, yeah.
I know in 1994 in LA, the power went out, and like the
Wow.
whole city's power went out, and the police actually, or there was 911 calls about a mysterious gray cloud in the sky, but it was actually the Milky Way because people have
Oh
never seen
wow.
it before.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's like we're living in this like at nighttime, it's just like a black sky or like a black sky with just like, you have the
Yeah,
moon or
it's
you
like
have
a
a couple
meaningless kind
things.
of
Right.
overlook on everything, I suppose, with the light
Ex-
pollution.
Exactly. So it's an aesthetic that keeps I think would keep some peace for a while. Just personally, I think that hopefully, but yeah, I mean, I think that the ruling would be very much kind of like the I don't know if it'd be very much like barbaric. I think we'd carry over a lot of like diplomacy. I think and I think a lot of people that go to Mars there'd probably be a pretty intense vetting system and like cognitive tests
Mm,
and
yeah.
for a while. Um, and I think for the most part, everyone that's going to be there for a while is going to have to actively play a role in the projects that are being going on Mars.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense. I guess we
yeah,
don't know. Maybe in the future they might go crazy, huh?
right. I mean, that's another thing we talked about was like the homesick. Like, you can't really just hop on that ship and go right back to Earth really quickly.
Yeah,
So
no.
people might get crazy.
Well, you might get crazy on the ship. You don't know, right?
Right, that too. Yeah,
You
that'd be the
got
real definition of
you
homesick.
actually can't go outside and touch grass anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, thank you for listening to this episode of the Deep Plea.
Thank you.
Sven, I don't know if you had anything to add, but
Um, I don't know. Get yourself a telescope and look at some stars. Have fun with
I think
it.
that's honestly a great way to end because just keep
Yeah,
pondering, keep thinking about what's happening in the night sky,
yeah.
because uh, I suppose Mac Miller said it best: "Keep your eyes to the sky, never glued to your shoes." What do you
Oh,
think,
yeah.
Sven?
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
All right, thank you all for tuning into this episode.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
appreciate you all. Take care.
Peace.
Have a good weekend, sir.
Yeah.